Hey, how you doing? This is Steve Sims. Welcome back to another episode of The Art of Making Things Happen. Today, I've got an old friend of mine. He is an old friend. He's like 3.5 decades. He's been a buddy of mine, Justin Bell. And if the name Bell strikes a bell with you, it's because the Bell family are one of those iconic names in the Le Mans racing circuit. Derek Bell was one of the top winning racing drivers and a famous icon. Justin has been a famous, he's a famous Le Mans Series world champion. This is a racing dynamic family who's now moved into media, TV, and the creative world. He came from the creative world, got into motor racing, and has gone back to creating in the way, ups, downs. Hey, and we're entrepreneurs, had a stroke, really got to reframe his life, but more than anything, this guy smiles. And I know that sounds weird. He's crashed cars. He's fallen off of tracks. He's won things. He's lost money like all of us have. But he's always got a smile, and he chooses that as his standard from the beginning of the day. He's got some great nuggets for you to share and to learn from of how to really evaluate and be proud of the life you're living in. Listen to a good friend of mine, Justin Bell, on The Art of Making Things Happen. Hey, Justin, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you very much, Steve. I don't know which continent we're on because we've done this for decades.
I don't know. What's it been like? 3.5 decades we've known each other.
Yeah, it really has.
It's ridiculous. I remember bumping into you at the 1997 50th year anniversary of the Monaco Grand Prix. Well, it wasn't the anniversary of the Monaco Grand Prix. It was the anniversary of Ferrari at the Monaco Grand Prix. And we were just in a VIP lounge in one of the apartments hanging out. And it was just weird because we kept bumping into each other after that in Switzerland. And even
back in
when
England.
I moved to America, you were literally on the street next to me in Laurel Canyon, weren't you?
Yeah, I mean, most people would get restraining orders. I just never did. I just figured I like your wife, so I figured, it was okay. No, it's actually quite amazing how we came to America, ended up within 500 yards of each other in Delray Beach. Amazing how we came to California and we're within a couple of miles of each other. It shows we're running out of places to operate. So where next? I don't know. Thailand would be good.
It is weird. But so I've known you from, and I would say I've got to know you very well. The good, bad, the ugly, all of that kind of stuff. But a lot of people know the surface level. So for any of my listeners out there, let's give them a quick recap. You are one of those names in motorsport. The Bell family is one of the biggest, proudest in sports car racing. And you are the son of Derek Bell, one of the most famous Le Mans winning drivers. You yourself in your own right, very successful Le Mans winning racing driver, as well as other series. So we know the speed element. I actually want to take a little bit more of a dig in. There's a lot of people, and I was actually reading on your biography on your website, Justin Bell, that a lot of people think because you came from this legacy name that things were easy for you. I know you, and I know a lot of other sons and kids of famous people. It can be quite the opposite. And I actually think for you, it wasn't so much of a benefit being part of the Bell name and brand. It may have even been a hindrance. How do you see it?
It's a great question because, it's like everybody, especially in today's world, and, I'm not at the social media fame level, but, I always compare being in sports car racing. When someone says, are you famous? You go, well, are you into kayaking? And they go, no. I said, well, just imagine you are. And you are so into kayaking. In the corner of the restaurant is a world champion kayaker. You would be wetting your knickers. You'd be like, oh, my God, doesn't everyone know that that's Justin Bell, the kayaker? And that's a bit what it's like in my form of racing. You know what I mean? I'm a kayaker. So it means you're famous to the people that are in your immediate sphere and the fans they're in. Obviously, the Lewis Hamiltons and people like that, Jeff Gordon's transcend that by a long way. But that's just to put this into perspective because I think there's a lot of preconceptions about what you are when you're second generation. Silver spoon. Oh, I had it easy. Lucky sperm club. It's going to be easy. Yes, it opens doors without doubt. How can it not? I grew up with Jackie Ickx and, knowing all these incredible drivers, Brian Redman, David Hill, Sterling Moss. And so always around it. But I was an art student. I raced motocross and then went and tried to paint nudes in the room above the garage, which was a perfect teenage years, I might say. But when it comes to when it got tough is, I think people just presume when you're the son of someone that it's all sorted. So if you think about it, if you've got 5 guys and girls that you're going to give the opportunity to, especially in Britain, as you and I know, you go, well, we're not going to give it to the lucky bastard there because he's already kitted out because he's Derek Bell's son. Meanwhile, I'm going, I've got no sponsors. I've got no drive. What do you mean? I've got to be up for it the same as anyone else. So that was the first time when I, even right from the beginning, when I was 18, trying to get into Formula Ford and things, it was like, oh, you're one of the lucky ones. And that kind of carried on a bit. Thankfully, people always compared me to my dad, but at the same time, I wasn't my dad. I had a pretty strong personality of my own. I had this total idiotic Belgian journalist before I got in the car at Le Mans one time. I was waiting at 2 a.m. to get in the Viper, and he stands there and he goes, how does it feel, not being knowing you will never be as good as your dad? And I went, well, who the fuck in this pit lane is as good as him? Why do you lay that on me? You know what I mean? It's not just me, is it? And he went, oh. I said, so you can go now. You know what I mean? It's like, when your dad's the Tiger Woods of his own generation in sports cars, very few people match up. So I guess to dig a little deeper, Steve, I had the reverse favoritism a lot of my life, which meant you get on. And my dad was one of those old school British guys that is terrified of nepotism. And, in America, long live nepotism. Here you are, son. We see it in politics. You see it in business. Oh, there you are. You may have half a brain, but, you get the top job. My dad, and it's a very British thing, was like, got to make your own way. So it was a reoccurring theme, but what are you going to do? Cry? You've got to get on with it, haven't you?
Yeah, the mindset, because I've seen, we've been out, having drinks, having dinner and stuff like that. No one's talked to us. We've walked anywhere near a racetrack and you're mobbed. Yeah. It's got to mess with the mindset. How do you keep your mind straight under such stressful situations? Because that's what's always amazed me about anyone in a top level sport. And you are a top level sports athlete. There's times when you're getting in the car and you go off track on the first corner and you've got to get your head back in the game and get back on the track. There's times when you're kind of like fighting for the next gig, because you're right. There's only so many seats on a grid and you've got to get one of those. So you're only ever as good as your last performance, regardless of what your name is. How do you control your mind?
Well, funny enough, thank goodness I have the ability when I'm behind the wheel of a race car to focus more than I do in real life. I'm like a freaking Labrador, shiny ball, whoop, off I go. That. But in a race car, it was one of those things you put that helmet on. And I use it as an analogy for my son when he was younger, when he had trouble with school exams. I said, Oliver, put the helmet on. The noise filters out. There's no more people, where are my tickets? I'm here. Why haven't I got hospitality? People wanting things of you. It calms down and it focuses you. And I want everybody watching this, now Formula One has just exploded. When you're looking at those drivers on the grid, and the pit guy, when I've done that job now, as you know a lot, goes up, hey, Alonso, can we have a quick word just before you get in the car? Like, oh, yeah, hey, yeah, we can do that. Now that's at my level. At their level, the pressures are extraordinary. So I call it putting the helmet on. It just literally calms out. It's just you and your engineer. You can hear on the radio, and you take the time. Interesting on focus, though, because I found the noise around racing, not the noise of racing, the noise around it, very distracting. And I wasn't very capable of handling it as best I should. And I think there are people that get good at it. That's why you see people with handlers, right? You go, what's why has Lewis got that lady with him the whole time? She's not his trainer. She just looks after him. Why does, Alonso have someone? I know why now, because, it's not just because it makes you feel big. It's because they deflect the noise. And to be good at whatever you do, I think it's a bit like, you in business, we talk. You need some silence, don't you, to be able to give your own space. And we all, as we get older, I think, get better at it. And I'm way better at it now. I wish I could go back, because I'd be so much better, right? So much better. And to be fair, you know him, my oldest mate, James, rather like your mate, Colin, he was my deflector a lot. He also had to, line up the pretty girls, because I was racing. So he had to go and James, where's the party afterwards? But, he was, you need someone like that in your life.
I've noticed a lot, and a lot of people see it in sport. Sport has transcended from the sport itself to all these other elements you have to do. And it's like in business, someone can be really talented at something, and then all of a sudden they become successful. And that can quite often be to the detriment of their art. I use the analogy of, I've said, how do most entrepreneurs go bankrupt? They become successful. All of a sudden they have to do stuff that they're not very good at. You can have someone that's an absolute fantastic artist that's now got to start doing marketing, PR, Facebook ads, website, invoicing. And I noticed a lot of athletes that all of a sudden have to do PR, media, and they can be absolutely shit at that. Yeah. But they can be amazing behind the wheel or on the bars. You actually were very, very good at the camera stuff. In fact, that became the next step in your career. There were so many athletes that you stick them in. Let's look at Michael Schumacher, the wonderful Michael Schumacher that we both met. He would almost tolerate the cameras because he was a very, very private man. Sticking behind a wheel, masterclass.
Yeah, totally.
You were very good at that camera, and it actually took you into your next bit. When did you first realize that I'm actually pretty good with this media thing? When did that kick off?
Yeah, I mean, it's a really good question, because remember, I was an art student. I loved all that, was very creative, was actually kind of crap at art, but my brain was creative.
Yeah.
Then to be a professional race driver for 25 years, I shut it off. I actually shut off my creative side. But people would start, I did a thing on the BBC called Young Drivers. I did some little shows and things. I even had they even talked to me about Top Gear 30 years ago. I'm like, stupid idea. I mean, what's that going to do for me? I'm a racing driver. So what it was, as I was a good interviewee, Steve, you want to be, and I've done media training for young drivers and things. And I'm like, be noticeable, be someone, stand out from the crowd. And that's even more important now. But talking about me is, Speed Channel guys would come up and they'd be like, oh, we got time to film. We know Justin will talk well. Whatever time of the day, the middle of the night at Le Mans, middle of the night at Daytona, sweaty, exhausted, wanting to throw up. I never lost sight of the fact that racing is entertainment. The only way that we get paid is if there is a crowd, there's a TV audience, the sponsors will cough up, and then it filters down. So I became a good interviewee, and Speed Channel were like asking me, hey, would you do a bit more here and there? And so I did, but I was still trying to ride two horses, one leg on the racing and one leg on the TV. And as you know, if you can't ride two horses and you've got to focus, but racing's a drug. God, I just wanted to keep doing it. However, I was 40, like early 40s, when I was racing for a guy who, in Daytona prototypes, and a big guy, Roger Schramm, he had a skiing accident. He funded the team and raced with me, ripped his leg off, basically, said, we're not going to do any more this year. So he paid me out. And I could go to Speed Channel and say, I'm all in. It was one of those moments, 44 years old, 43, and I'm like, now's the time to do it. But digging a little deeper, Steve, I as Justin Bell, even though I, won Le Mans, won the World Championship in sports cars, I never really achieved what I wanted to achieve. I mean, if I really am honest, between you and I and everyone listening, I wanted to become Damon Hill. I wanted to be Jenson Button. I wanted to be, he's younger than me, but at the time I wanted to be Jeff Gordon. I wanted to be a Formula One driver, IndyCar champion. And it never happened for whatever reason. But the TV thing, I knew that I could be the best in what I do in TV. And so it felt like the most natural transition. And the minute I embraced it, it was like a weight came off my shoulders. I didn't realize how maybe a lot of my personality wasn't cut out to do what I did as a racing driver. I loved the racing. I was fast, but I wasn't ruthless enough. I was ruthless once we got into the race, but many factors made me not be that level driver. But in TV, I was like, I'm sorted. This is my life. And then back to my dad with his fear of nepotism, and like, I remember Audi even asked him one time. He was on the Audi board of selection board for drivers for British touring cars. They asked him to put a list of young drivers, 10 drivers. He didn't put me on the list. And so Audi are like, why isn't Justin on the list? Oh, well, I didn't want to sound like they're, it's okay. If you don't think it's good enough, that's all right. We'll go with the other 10 for a test. So that happened. When I started doing TV, he went, this is just brilliant. He didn't have to apologize for me. He knows I'm better at it than him. And he's been an amazing supporter. So there you are. Funny, right? How you find the next step using all that experience, all that knowledge. And now I love it. Broadcasting, I love it.
Are you a racing driver or an entrepreneur?
Biggest problem is I was an entrepreneur, Steve. And back to riding those horses.
Yep. Since
you've known me, so I was racing, and when we were, I was doing IMSA sports cars. I mean, I had a factory drive with Corvette, and I had an events company in London with James and Melanie. We did all those events in Monaco and stuff, but I should have been playing golf, working out, and 100% on building my racing opportunities. Instead, it didn't really pay me enough, so I had a business because I couldn't leave money on the table. That's so cool. Next thing is, I moved to America. Then I have a racing school. When I was racing with Corvette, my teammates just focused on racing. All I was doing was juggling both. It's been the story of my life because I'm too creative. I just can't stick with that one thing until I stopped racing, and then I was able to focus on one thing. So I'm an entrepreneur racing driver, which is probably why I have to add the entrepreneur on the racing driver part. Yeah, it's a good question.
Yeah, you've always been able to look at opportunities, and that's look, there's good and bad. There's no entrepreneur out there that hasn't had their ass handed to them, at minimum a few times. And we both know, our skeletons, because it happens. You go into a room and you ask any entrepreneur, hey, anyone here ever been broke? And the entire room puts their hand up. That's where the lessons have been learned from. But you haven't had it stop you, and you've had it move on. The funny thing I notice about entrepreneurs is we compare ourselves to the next run of the ladder. No matter how good we are, it's funny that I've been in the car with you, and I'm a two-wheel guy. I don't like cars. I admire and respect cars, but it's not my first love. And I've been in the car with you, and I remember this time in your racing school in Palm Beach, and you're going around corners like, 120, something like that. I'm holding on to everything, because I'm out of control, and entrepreneurs don't like that. And you're chatting to me about going to the movies that night. Mm-hmm. And I'm just wondering if I'm going to live to the next corner. And I remember those moments. You actually see things differently. You work at speed, but you're stood there. You're sat there on this podcast, a Le Mans winner, a world champion going, I never made it. There are people way less than you going, are you kidding? This guy's a Le Mans winner. He's a world champion. But isn't it funny how entrepreneurs, we never reach that top, do we?
No. And Steve, why? I do hope that curve slows, right, a little bit, because my son asked me the other day, "Oh, Dad, wouldn't you like that new Bugatti? Wouldn't you like this?" And I go, "Actually, Ollie, I mean, I'm not saying I don't have ambition anymore. I have a lot of ambition, a lot of drive, maybe more than I ever did. But what you're aiming for is different. It's not that Palm Beach mention. It's the ability to have experiences, right? Have a nice home, provide for everybody, do the things you want to do. I love nice watches. I like stuff. But it's funny, you tailor what you're really heading for. I do think that the racing has helped me in this way. I remember when I'd sit in meetings with, let's just say Michelin, big sponsors of mine for the show, and you'd sit in there with all these incredibly smart people, all masters and this and that and the other, and I'm just me. It's a bit like you sitting with them, right? The school of life, get to where we get. And I remember one time they're like, I do this whole presentation, and they had a guy from Wyatt Day there doing a whole training thing, and it's split into groups. It was out of 30 people. It was my tagline that worked its way through, and they're all like, "How do you come up with that?" And then they're like, "You present so well, you talk so well, you have no fear." I said, "I can't die doing this." So how tough is it? Talking to 1,000 people, talking to 10 people, going on TV, whatever. Can't die doing it. So maybe for me, the risk, I get the buzz, but I know ultimately the risk isn't the same. So why not go for it? So that's the way I view things. It's which is maybe why that ability to process fast on one hand under stress is something you evolve as a driver. Which probably qualifies me to be an Uber driver now in LA. But that's about it.
So you react very quickly to situations. You have a brilliant reaction speed. Any racing driver has to.
Yeah.
Otherwise, the alternative is painful. We both know that recently you had a situation that you had no control over, and I was actually. And I think this is a sign of our age.
Yeah.
We've gone from being in the clubs on the other side of the planet of Monaco or something to you're in your apartment and I'm in a garden center picking out trees, and I get a phone call from you. Do you want to tell people what happened that day?
Yeah, very interesting, isn't it? How your mind focuses down. I actually came out of the gym, and during lockdown a year ago, got into the best shape of my life. I think there are two forms of people, right? Some just turned to blub and some got fit. I was like, well, no excuse not to work out and go on a diet. So I was feeling really good about myself. But I had a little blood pressure issue I always have done. So I changed some medicine. Again, without being political about it, I had the Johnson & Johnson vaccine and it was fine. But I was walking out of 2 days later, into Whole Foods, out of the gym, had my mask on. As I'm walking in, I go, God, my mouth feels fluffy. It's like I've just been to the dentist. I feel like I'm numb. Go into Whole Foods. I'm standing there and I go, shit, I don't feel good. And my daughter's at home. I need to get home. Cognitively, I was fine, but I was thinking, I don't feel good. And I'm always feel good. And so I aware of my body, drove home only a couple of miles. Walk in the house. My daughter goes, hey, Dad, you're home early. I went, can you get me some water? And I went, I'm having a fucking stroke. And I said to Lula, I called my doctor, and she said, you need to get to hospital. And I was like, I know it's only around the corner. Who do I know who is on the doorstep and who I can trust? I've got my daughter. So I called Steve, called you. And, I think it's a sign of men's friendships, right? We don't live in each other's pockets, and but you have a few people you could trust, and you're one of them. So I called you. Within 10 minutes, you were around. Meanwhile, my daughter, thank God, she's so brilliant, Tallulah. She's now 15. She was Googling signs of a stroke and getting me to do all these tests, my hands, my eyes, my arms, my legs. And she's like, oh, Dad, it doesn't look good. And I got to say, Steve, it was wonderful because, I didn't even know. You picked us up, and then I walk in, and then you took off with her. And of course, I couldn't think about it for the next few hours. So, I thank you a lot for that. Because imagine the sight of you and Henry turning up. She's 14 years old, and this guy's in a blinking Raptor. I'm like, yeah, no, this is security.
This is the best I could get at short notice.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, no.
But it was a small stroke, and again, no politics involved, but it does seem like the vaccine triggered it, because it does 1 in 1,000 and 1 in 10,000. I don't know what the numbers are, but that'll never be proved either way. Weird. A little bleed on this side, which stopped, but it did affect my mouth here, and so I had speech therapy for a couple of months. But in that moment, you're in hospital, and it's all a bit of a panic. And a lot of people watching this have been through their own emergencies. You feel so helpless, and you feel like you've got no say in what goes on. And it's amazing how you become hero fixated on the guy in the white or the girl in the white jacket or coat who's telling you what's going on, MRIs, CT scans and everything. It all stabilized. I was out 2 days later, and there's really not a lot they can do for it. After that, they put you on some medicine, but I talk for a living. That's it. I don't do hand modeling. That's it. And the thought and the fear that I would not be able to do what I'm doing now or in the future was the biggest driver. And you sit there, and there's two things that it made me realize, and I've evolved my speech on this. And one is, I tell the kids, I think if you've risked your life in a physical way or pushed yourself climbing mountains, whatever it happens to be, racing cars, when you've brushed up against danger and you control danger, it's like watching one of those movies when they got an energy ball in their hand. You're controlling it, you're handling it, and you make the decisions on the spot, you plan, you prepare, but it's all about very fast decision making with preparation. I found that I was, I think that makes you appreciate life, makes you understand what living is. I know how to live because I've felt what it is, up against risk. I also think when you have a medical emergency, it makes you, it's not an epiphany, mate. You don't go, I didn't line up angels and, have a list of people I wanted to, make out with before I die. Well, not necessarily, but, I did come up with, I know what I need to take care of, and I know what my goals are in life. And I actually think it's a blessing. It was a blessing. It gave me a heads up. 53 at the time. I'm not immortal. And, I had a deal with my daughter. I got to live to 104. So, it makes you care about diet. It makes you, all those kind of things. So, yeah, thank you for that. But I reckon that any opportunity to recalibrate yourself, and I know that's a lot what you do in your motivational speaking, it's just like reframing everything. So you go, I have these skills. Boy, I am lucky. And rather, like you said, I often don't appreciate my success. It's not because I don't appreciate it, but I could have been more. I'm now going for the first time, fuck me, that was all right. Now let's get on with the next part. It's okay, JB, you did all right. And taking that pressure off my own back is probably the biggest thing that's come out of this.
Thank you for sharing that. People need to understand that. People need to pay attention to where they are. As entrepreneurs, yeah, we have that drive to always want bigger, better, faster, stronger, whatever. But every now and then we need to stop and just look around us and go, hang on a minute, we're pretty damn lucky where we are now. So thank you very much for sharing that. Your creativity, and anyone that follows you on Instagram, in fact, how do people follow you on Instagram and your social?
So I'm at Justin Bell TV. Is one. As always, when you're just trying to get your own name, turns out it belongs to 14-year-old kid in Ohio. And you're like, really? What are you doing with it? So justinbell.com is my website, but it's tied up with Leica Racer at Leica Racer, which is my photography. And so those two, Justin Bell TV and Leica Racer.
So in following you and knowing you and just following how you've moved, I've been able to see you kind of like, speeding around the planet in beautiful four-wheel McLarens and Vipers and some of the most amazing vehicles that my fat ass can't fit in. And then I've been watching your Instagram and you still do a lot with TV. You still do, Pebble. You go to any event, whether it be Goodwood, whether it be Pebble Beach, you're going to see Justin. He's interviewing someone, he's filming something. But I love watching your Instagram with your photography. So I see how the creativity has come back into your life now. Is that like a great escape for you, being able to be behind the lens?
Massively so. As I said, I was a pretty average artist and only got into art college because my mum made me when I said I was going to go racing, and then I got thrown out because it was open testing at Brands Hatch. Very quick story. Got thrown out. The dean of the college said, if you ever, do racing, you'll be expelled. Or my tutor did. Went back at the beginning of the next year with a full racing contract, and they wanted to throw me out. He thought he thought racing was way better than being an artist, so he let me stay. But as I said, sideline the creative thing. Creativity started to come through in the shows I produced. Creativity came through with talk media, with the talk show that I do with Jason Jacobson and Tommy Kendall, who's another big driver. Jason's amazing producer from NASCAR, IMSA, and we have this company. So hosting Pebble Beach, being there, we've redefined the live stream genre at these social, I call them auto social lifestyle events. We're doing Chattanooga in Tennessee. We work with the Audrain guys in Newport. I mean, it's great, Steve. It's like piggybacking on a massive event and bringing your lens to it, your optics, to try and broadcast it. So I love that. But I was missing my own artistic side. So it's funny. Let's say about 6 years ago, I ran out and I was like, I'm gonna get back into painting. Bear in mind, I was not a great artist. But I went down to Michael's, bought this massive canvas, all these paints, went in the garage, and reminded myself, how truly crap I was. And I'm thinking, that's not right. But I'd seen someone with a Hasselblad camera at Amelia Island, and I was like, God, that's beautiful. Look down through the top, medium format. So I went to Sammy's, found one on eBay, and with their advice, bought it. Then I got into Leicas because I needed something smaller. And it was like my eyes were open. This is where I can be creative. I'm not a technical photographer, but I know about light and everything. And so I love my mainly portrait photography. And I have then turned that into, which is where Leica Racer came from. It's just portraits. But you mentioned earlier, I have amazing access. I have this world that I've grown up in. And it actually all stemmed from like me sitting with Dad and Jackie X and Dad won Le Mans 4 times together. And Dad's won it 5, Jackie's won it 6. They're legends there. But we're all in France having dinner last year before Le Mans. And I'm listening to their stories and I'm going, God, I wish I could record this. And then I see with David Hobbs or Hurley Hayward, I'm going, I've got these amazing people that I'm one of them, even though I'm, younger. I need to record this because they're starting to time out. The old boys are dying. Dear old Sir Sterling Moss, he's gone. And Tony Brooks died the other. So many of them are dying. So I thought I'm going to couple doing a podcast where it's a conversation like this, but as kind of equals of, I'm like a disciple of the sport that they're in, but they share with me because I've walked the walk, and then I take a portrait. And so it's, and I'm really enjoying it. The website's going up soon for the portraits, and I'm going to have an exhibition at Pebble Beach, which will be kind of cool. And, but these conversations have been very rewarding, and I'm calling it Life with Legends. And
is that the name of the website as well?
That's going to be the website. And Life with Legends is on Instagram, and it's very small at the moment. But you know what? I'm not putting the pressure on myself. Like everything else is goal oriented. Can we get 100,000 followers? Can we do this? For me, I'd like it to be a commercial success. That's the entrepreneur. But the person that's looking for contentment in his life, the other side of me, is going, at worst, I'll have this amazing library, this archive of conversations with people that are massive in our sport. And I took their picture. And the portraits are only 24 limited editions signed by them where possible, and expensive. And I'm loving it. my day is split up into talk media. What am I going to do? Let's get new contracts. And then the afternoons are spent doing Life with Legends. I love it.
Beautiful. Yeah, I've been watching that build up, and it's very exciting. You're a very good interviewer. You're a great sparkly personality. You know the industry, and you've got a great deal of respect for these names. One of the funny things is, I always, whenever I would go to any racetracks, and I don't race to your level, but any of the motorcycle, I would always try to find the old boys. And those are the guys with the best stories. And I remember saying to Henry one day, and we've actually got a picture of this. We were at a motocross race at Milestone when it used to exist. And it was this old vintage motocross race. I was on an old Husky, and I was hanging around with these old boys. And I said to Henry, I went, it's really cool hanging around with these old motorcycle racers because you get to kind of like really get in and understand this. And he said, Dad, do you realize you're one of those?
Yeah.
And, Spring Chicken, you've got the name, you've got the accolades. You're one of those old-time racers. Does it ever strike you you've actually been in this for a long time and that you are one of those names?
Yeah, it's weird, isn't it? I think there's legends and veterans. I might be a veteran. It's funny. They call you a veteran the minute you're like 40. But, the fact that you've done so many races and stayed in the business, and you mentioned sponsors before, the amount you have to hustle and you keep in the game. And I think that's the biggest thing of the entrepreneur, right? Is you just believe that tomorrow is going to be a better day and another opportunity. And I find that very, it's wonderful, but dangerous. I'm not really sidestepping your question. The question is, I'm an old bastard, but I'm dealing with people that are 70 and 80. So I'm young to them. Also, they've known me since I was a kid. Yeah. And isn't it that weird phenomenon? I swear that David Hobbs, Brian Redmond, those guys still look at me like, Justin, isn't he a nice lad? I'm like, no, I'm 10 years older than you were when you retired. But I say to the kids, the cliches, enjoy the journey. It's not just about the destination. Yeah. But I also say to them, today may be the best day. We always hope tomorrow is going to be better, but just at least once a day, look around and go, this is good. I live in a lovely place, or we all want more, but it's freaking exhausting, isn't it?
Yeah, it can wear you out. And as you say, you miss out on the beauty you've got around you. And I know personally, I've spent so many times, and my life very well. I've spent so many times kind of like rushing, and failing to see how wonderful my moment was. Yeah. And then by the time you look back, it's gone. Something's happened and you've lost it all, and you've gone, shit, hang on, I had that, but I didn't even notice. So I think that's just a sign of maturity, though, isn't it? Or just getting
I think it is. I think how do you deal with this interesting question when you're telling people to celebrate the milestones? And I'll give you my analogy. I got given 5 years ago a lovely bottle of Dom Perignon, which I put in the fridge for like my birthday or something, and I'm going to open that when there's a good milestone, a good reason. So we get this massive deal with Michelin to go and do the talk show at the races. Didn't open it because I don't know why. I thought, maybe when we get our first hit for 100,000 subscribers or something, or maybe when we get the next sponsorship deal, maybe when the kids maybe when I do this. Still unopened, isn't it? So it's like about a few months ago, I was like, oh, fuck this. So I just had it with pizza. You know what I mean? Because what's the point? You can't. I think in life we're conditioned to. Not everybody. You have to be wired like this, but celebrate the moment. And I would say it to anybody, and you have the opportunity with your reach, with your audience and the things you do. Guys, if you do something on by whatever measure, whatever metric, and you achieve something, have a drink, have a smoke, take your bird out for dinner or your guy out for dinner, whatever. Just celebrate the moment. And we're just not good at that, because I think we've settled. No, we haven't settled. Just enjoy it. Enjoy and celebrate.
Yeah, you're right. I've got a very good friend of mine that actually says that special day is today. And again, we learned these lessons by making the mistakes.
Yeah.
And so it's very easy to sit here and go, I wish I'd have done that. And wish I'd. A friend of mine actually said to me, the best bottle of whiskey is the one that you open up with your friends.
Totally.
And just, you learn all of these things. And it's easy to go, oh, my God, I wish I'd learned that when I was 20. But we were too arrogant and stupid. And it's taken this long and a couple of strokes and being broken, that kind of smack in the face to make us realize that we're actually not in control. We're part of the journey. And we celebrate today and this moment. Justin, you know I love you, man. I want you to stay well and stay fit. I love what you're doing. I love the creativity. You're a guy that can win a race, come off a track, do a TV. You never stop smiling. It doesn't matter whether you're up or down. I've never seen you not smiling. And Jesus, I hate the fact that you've got a full head of hair. It's annoying.
I don't know what happened. Is there more gravity in your area? Does it just pull it off the top?
I think that's what it is. It's pulled it out of the back, bottom end of my face. But Justin, how can people get hold of you? Repeat how they can get hold of you.
So at Justin Bell TV on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and or just check out at Like a Racer, because I think you'll like it. And and those two will lead you to Life with Legends. But, you know, I really I appreciate all the support. I'm glad that, and when it comes to smiling, I just choose to look at life positively. It's my elective choice. And we all have bad days, but boy, it's good if your platform is a bit higher, right? And then when you drop down, you got somewhere to come to.
It's a good start. I like that. Good philosophy. Justin, thanks very much, pal. Live long and strong.
All right,
all the best, family.
Thanks for having me on the show. All right, guys.
Bye.